Hello and welcome to the Minutes to Win It NBA podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. Talking about tonight's 9-game slate. And we're going to go position by position, talk about some potential injuries, concerns, some top plays, values, things like that. So starting off at point guard, only real injury concern on this one. We've got Jrue Holiday officially out for tonight. No surprise there on the back-to-back. Chris Paul listed as questionable for tonight with inflamed rib cartilage. I'm not exactly sure how significant that is, but obviously if he sits out, Austin Rivers, Jamal Crawford are guys that weren't in play that are kind of in play. Blake Griffin will get a bump as well, but seems to be that, last time we thought Chris Paul wasn't going to play, he was doubtful, all of a sudden suited up and had a huge game. So not necessarily a guy that I'm going out of my way to play tonight, but I'm not too concerned that he'll sit out. How about you?
Yeah, I'm just going to plan ahead that he's going to play tonight just because, one, I'm not really too high on Jamal Crawford and Austin Rivers anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It's just probably a situation I'm just going to avoid altogether.
Yeah. John Wall's a guy that after last night, kind of one of those situations where it seems like Cleveland, as far as point guards go, you struggle, then you get to face Cleveland, then all of a sudden all your woes are cured. You feel great. Now you get the Lakers on the next night. So John Wall at his still very low price tag relative to some other top plays gets a phenomenal matchup here. Obviously, Washington is a big favorite in this one, but at his price, it's hard for me to look past him really in all formats.
Yeah, I mean, do you think he's going to be the highest owned player tonight?
At point guard or in any position?
Overall.
No, I don't know. It'd be hard for Bob Covington not to be that guy for me still. But
that's true.
Wall's going to definitely have 4 times the ownership he had last night at least.
Yeah.
So definitely a guy, at his price, he's just in a good spot. Other guys at point guard position to look at, there's not a whole lot that I love as far as top guys outside of that. You got Kemba Walker, up-tempo game against Golden State that I like, more so on DK where he's only $7,500. Steph Curry, of course, a guy that's always in play, but I don't think he's a necessity tonight with other plenty good options. The guy that frustrated me and you last night, we were talking about, Tyreke Evans, came in. They said minutes restriction. He played 31 minutes, had a phenomenal game. Obviously, with Jrue Holiday out tonight, he's starting alongside Ish Smith. So I haven't seen any reports about a minutes restriction, and after last night, I'm not sure I buy them anyway. So he's the guy that I'll be throwing in some tournaments here as well because, 31 minutes last night, if he sees close to that, it's not like it's a particularly tough matchup for him against Houston tonight.
Yeah, I love this game for offense. I think he's much more in play for me on DK where he's 6,600, but also a shooting guard. We a position where you're really just looking at Harden being the top option, and then just a mess below him. But I do like Evans. We know what he can do. We know that he has upside, but I think people still need to be wary of the floor he brings because some nights he just doesn't do much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a guy that's probably higher owned tonight than he rightfully should be coming off that performance last night. Moving on here to the shooting guard position, obviously James Harden is your top play, as he is pretty much every night that he's on the court at shooting guard. Facing New Orleans, not a tough matchup for him. Obviously, he's still the focal point of that offense, et cetera, et cetera. We've got Dwight Howard, of course, gets a great matchup in this same game, though, as well, against the center position at New Orleans, which has been just god-awful. But if you're not going James Harden, one guy that I like is DeMar DeRozan against Atlanta. He's a guy who's consistently scoring real points, not consistently having great all-around DFS games, but he does have that nice high floor where he's going to take a ton of shots. He's going to probably score you 18 to 24, 25 real points. You just hope that the peripheral stats are there to pay off that, mid 7K price tag.
Yeah, he scored 20-plus points in the last 4 games, and shooting the ball well, over 40%, looking at 55% the last game against Phoenix. He also dished out 7 assists, which really drove his upside there. I can't count on 7 assists every night, but I do like the floor he brings. I think he's a nice cash game play.
Yeah, I agree there. And then Jeremy Lamb's another guy that been a popular cash game play recently. All but one of his last 10 games, over 20 fantasy points on both sites. Now we've got Jeremy Lin. Said he's going to try to play. Not sure how healthy he's going to be. Not sure how many minutes he's going to play, even if he is able to go tonight. So monitor that status because Jeremy Lamb's going to get an instant boost in minutes there. And he's been productive anyway. Facing the Golden State team, obviously, you were saying earlier, it's like the target on your back kind of thing. Everyone wants to give Golden State their best shot. Everyone wants to be the team that beats them. And I mean, Lamb's had a nice high floor anyway, so expect him to see 25 to 28 minutes, potentially more, especially if Lynn sits out.
Yeah, definitely like him a lot tonight. One guy to kind of avoid here, Will Barton. Going to see some Jimmy Butler because Gary Harris is going to probably sit out tonight again. He had concussion symptoms, so it's going to open up minutes for Barton, but not a great matchup at all. So definitely just one guy to avoid.
Yeah, I'm completely on board with that. And then Bradley Beal, another interesting option here, facing the Lakers. As we know, Lakers terrible defensively. I mean, couldn't even keep within single digits against the winless Sixers. But Beal coming off 2 very complete games in his last 2. 41 minutes, went for 26 and 6. 42 minutes, 18, 9 and 6. He's finally turned from jump shooter into the all-around player we all had hoped and anticipated he would be. And so he makes for a really nice play here as well. Only concern, along with Wall, being that this game gets out of hand because we saw Wizards beat the Cavs last night, and I mean the Lakers they're just bad. They're terrible.
Yeah, I mean it very well could be a blowout tonight. I think this one and the Golden State game, probably the 2 ones that you're worried about for starters minutes, but still, I mean the matchup's too good for both of them to not play them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then moving on to small forward over here, may seem like a broken record, but there's a reason why these 2 guys are the most expensive players. Paul George gets the Clippers, Clippers' weakest position even. And, I mean, actual points in his last 3, 39, 33, 40. Paul George, I mean, easily been a top 5 player in the NBA this year. As far as small forward go, you're going to be really hard-pressed to get yourself as consistent of a floor and as much upside as Paul George brings. Going to be playing up in pace here, of course, a little bit against the Clippers. Indiana kind of and more of an up-tempo team than they were last year anyway. I mean, Paul George, if you want to pay his price tag, I mean, he's in LeBron territory as far as price goes now. But, I mean, he's about as consistent of an option as you'll find in any position.
Yeah, I mean, he's really asserted himself to among Steph Curry levels as far as price, James Harden as well. I mean, if you were paying up for superstars now, it's like Paul George is in that mix. He's not that nice 8,000 price tag he was at the beginning of the season. So, I think tonight there's just too many options lower than him that I like. I mean, we both like Robert Covington again. I think for that price, it just makes sense to go a little bit cheaper and pay up elsewhere.
Yeah. One other guy up top there, a little bit different price from George, but similar floor, not quite the upside as Kawhi Leonard. Over 9K now on FanDuel, still a little bit under 9K on DraftKings. So he's going to give you that nice high floor, 35 to 40 fantasy points. He does have some upside. And it's a bad Milwaukee team, but if we're talking about blowout potential, highest point spread of the night here. Spurs favored by 12. Milwaukee, a bad defensive team. Bad defensive teams don't usually last until the 4th quarter against the Spurs, especially at home. So a little bit of caution there with Leonard. But good thing with him is he gets a little bit of run with the second unit as well. So Kawhi Leonard in 32 minutes against this team may still end up easily paying off his price tag.
Yeah, I mean, just with his defensive ability to rack up stats, I mean, he's going to give you a safe floor whether he plays 25 minutes or 35. I mean, the guy's just that good.
Yeah, I mean, he can certainly do it all. And then a guy who was popular, didn't get his minutes last night, struggled. TJ Warren, only 19 minutes against Brooklyn last night. So if you fell into that one, that's unfortunate. He's a guy that better reserved for GPP play now, especially with the way that he's been kind of up and down. You've seen his upside, but now we've seen his floor from last night, so not a guy that I'm going out of my way to play tonight.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And sticking to that same game, Stanley Johnson coming off his best game of the season, went 19 and 10. Saw 30 minutes. He saw 27 minutes the game before. Another guy who's kind of along the lines of Warren where he has upside, but the minutes were pretty uncertain with, going in each night. But I think with an up-tempo game like this, you could see some Stanley Johnson.
Yeah, I like that. And then on that same note, we saw Marcus Morris said he was not at shoot around, but they're expecting him to play. Got some back stiffness, so even if he goes, like you said, Stanley Johnson's been playing well, so that's the guy to definitely keep on your radar. Power forward, Houston's been terrible against power forwards. Anthony Davis just so happens to be the best one in all of basketball. Sorry, Blake Griffin. Coming off of a game where he almost got the Hassan Whiteside triple-double with blocks. Scored 17 points against Memphis, but ended up with 57.8 on FanDuel. So if you're just looking at the box score and it's one of those small box scores where you have to kind of turn your phone sideways to see the blocks and the steals. You see, 17 and 14, less disappointing. Then you turn it sideways, and there's 18 points on blocks for you right there from Anthony Davis. And it's another great spot for him. And I mean, I don't mind going to some of these cheaper guys, but I mean, if you're looking for the big time upside, that's certainly your man.
Yeah, he's definitely the top play. And like you said, I mean, 9 blocks last game. He shot 26% from the field and still managed to score 61 DK points there and 50, like you mentioned, on FanDuel. I mean, he's when he's healthy, he's the best power forward option. Delivers that high floor. Upside, we know it's unmatched as far as other power forwards.
Yeah. Kristaps Porzingis, another guy who finally getting big minutes. Kind of leave that Miami game out of it. That game wasn't close. But 41, aside from that one, 41, 36, 37, 36. That's all we were waiting for with Porzingis here at his current price tag. Almost 8K on DraftKings, just over 7K on FanDuel. Still makes for nice plays. Going to see mid-30s in minutes here, based on the Philly team that, I mean, there's a reason why they only have 1 win on the season. Not a good defensive team, not a good anything team. It's just Bob Covington, and that's it. So Porzingis, still a great play here at his price tag.
Yeah, and even with that Miami game, he didn't kill you. I mean, he had 11 and 8, 3 blocks, 2 steals. Yeah, it was a down game. He got into foul trouble, but I mean, I think we're kind of seeing that floor come up a little bit more. It was a little bit risky early in the season, but I mean, you got to love Porzingis right now, especially in this matchup. And with that price tag on FanDuel, I mean, I think he's pretty close to, a very safe play on power forwards.
Yeah, and speaking of safe plays, few guys are much safer than Draymond Green, a guy who doesn't generally look to generate his own offense. He's kind of a defer first type of guy, but took a ton of shots in the last game against Utah. Almost had another triple-double, 29 and 7. 2 triple-doubles in a row before that. Had another triple-double a couple weeks ago. The guy can do it all. Doesn't need to score actual points to pay off his salary, which is why he's such a great cash game play. And on DraftKings, he's a real nice tournament play. I mean, and cash game play, of course, but with the double-double and triple-double bonuses there as well. And Charlotte, as we know, not they're a good defensive team, but individual matchups, there's not any one player that you see that you're going to see on Draymond Green that you're concerned with the matchup.
Yeah, I mean, they're one of the worst against power forwards. If there's any place you really want to attack in this game, I'm going Draymond Green, just because he is a safe guy, even in blowouts, as we've seen lately.
Yeah, and then Blake Griffin, Paul Millsap, of course, both guys going to see your mid-30s in minutes. Blake Griffin, if Chris Paul doesn't play, Griffin gets a nice little bump there as well. But I still think if I'm paying that premium tag, I'm going to just go up a little bit more and go Anthony Davis tonight. Center options, not quite the huge amount of options we had for last night, but right before we started recording this, Tyson Chandler officially listed as out for tonight. So perceived tough matchup for Alex Len against Andre Drummond, but Drummond not a great defender. He's the guy that blocks quite a few shots, but individual one-on-one defender, he's still not a great defender. Alex Len coming off a great game last night, 13-14 with 2 assists, 3 blocks, 2 steals. You're not expecting that type of game, but if you're seeing low to mid-30s in minutes, 30 to 33 probably, something like that, if he can stay out of foul trouble tonight. There's not a lot of depth in that front court now. So assuming that he gets those big minutes, I mean, he's minimum salary on FanDuel, so he's a guy that I'm just going to go ahead and slot into my cash games and just move along.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenix is going to need some size down there anyway, with Detroit having Drummond. So Len's locked for minutes as long as he can stay on the court there. And like you said, I mean, 3,300. I mean, this guy just opens up a ton of salary and delivers a pretty safe floor for his price.
Yeah, one other guy who generally has a nice floor, had that one down game against Boston, but Marcin Gortat, he's got a nice price tag across the industry, facing a Lakers team that, I don't know how many other ways we need to say it, not a good defensive team. Gortat, though, his main issue has been not getting a ton of minutes, but despite seeing upper 20s in minutes for much of the season, his last 4 games, 31, 29 in that Boston game, but then 34, 33. So if we see Gortat seeing 30-plus minutes against the Lakers, then he's in a great spot. But once again, double-digit point spread here, so I won't be loading up on Wizards, but I think he's, at his price tag, certainly a guy you need to get some exposure to into your tournaments.
Yeah, I do like him a lot tonight, too. I mean, he's been shooting the ball very efficiently, 70%, 57%. Taking out that Boston game, he shot 75% against Charlotte the game before. So, I mean, right now he's just been a lock for 3 double-doubles in the last 4 games, and you got to like that consistency of his price.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's got to keep in consideration. One more guy to talk about here, Clint Capella. I guess we'll talk about Dwight Howard as well. Both guys listed as centers. Capella, obviously, actually playing the 4. He's going to get Anthony Davis tonight, so he doesn't get that. If you just look at center and you look at the center numbers, you think Capella's got a great matchup here, and he doesn't. He's got the matchup against Anthony Davis. Then you've got Dwight Howard, who does get the center position, whoever they decide to throw at him. And the whole thing with Howard is he isn't looking to dominate down low because he doesn't need to, because James Harden dominates everywhere else on the court. But if they decide to go that route tonight, I mean, matchups aren't going to get any better for Dwight Howard than this one.
Yeah, I think just a tournament play, though, but I mean, that upside is there. Any center that plays New Orleans has got tremendous upside, much like we saw last night with Gasol. I never thought Gasol would ever see 70 DK points, ever.
Yeah, well, last night was finally that night, and don't expect it anytime soon, but yeah, Marc Gasol was just absolutely tremendous last night. So that's going to wrap things up here for us for today for the Minutes to Win It. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got lots of other great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.